Hello and welcome to this edition of News Today. Thanks for your company. The details now. The Ghana Book Publishers Association says textbooks developed based on the new curriculum will not be available in schools when the next academic year commences next week. The Ghana Education Service last month announced the rollout of a new curriculum that will focus on the total development of the child and not examination focused to discourage learning by rote, also known as chew and pour, pass and forget. President of the Book Publishers Association, Elliot Ejari, says his members are currently developing the books to submit to the National Council for Curriculum Assessment.
Our role was to develop the textbooks and submit them to NACA for evaluation, and that the ministry will buy books after that process. As we speak now, we have made, a few of us have submitted books to NACA. Most of us are in the process of developing the textbooks. The evaluation process, we have not heard that the evaluation process has commenced. So as we speak now, so far as we're concerned, no books have been, or no evaluation of books have been completed to allow the ministry to start the procurement process. I think that, for a definitive answer to this, I think that it's better addressed to the NACA or to the ministry. But so far as we are concerned, our members are in the process of submitting their books. And no books have been assessed yet, according to our knowledge. No one of our members has received their evaluation reports, which allows even the ministry to start the procurement process.
Mr. Ejari has also been explaining the impact of the absence of these textbooks on pupils, as well as how the rollout of the new curriculum has affected their business.
UNESCO Global Education Monitoring Report, the policy paper 23, makes a very strong case that every child needs a textbook. Okay. Secondly, from all research that we have come across, it's said that next to an engaged and prepared teacher, a good and well-designed textbook is the best thing to improve student achievement. And it's not contested. It's not something that's contested. I mean, if you read any report from the World Bank on textbooks, it says that the textbook is the teacher's next best, the student's next best friend. Because when they go home, that's what they engage in. When they are doing independent study, that's what they're engaged in. So, I mean, this whole idea that textbooks are just an added on really is something that we took great exception to. I think that it's important that we emphasize that textbooks are very critical. Unfortunately, in our planning, the textbooks are not going to be in place at the same time as we are implementing the policy. But every effort is being made to make sure that the textbook get in early. That's a more reasonable way of approaching it than to say that textbooks are not that important.
You also still on impact. I mean, you make the point about some books that have already been brought in by your members, and you're saying that they are in distress. How much are we looking at?
Oh, what I'm talking about is the old stock that we have, because what it is that we have stock that we are going to sell for this academic year. Unfortunately, we are starting a new curriculum that does not need those old books. And an estimate from our members, we collated from our members, we are getting to about 15 million Ghana cedis now. And that's from just maybe about 10 of our members. We are a 100 member association. So what happens if we pull it all together? And that's separate from what the booksellers also are claiming to have in their stock. So it could well be a very gargantuan figure.
What do you think could be done about this?
I don't know whether the government can come to our aid, because this is a very distressed industry. I mean, looking at what is happening, this should be the peak time, but nobody's buying any books. And many people depend on the book industry for their livelihoods.
The National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, has declared a strike of outstanding salary arrears and delays in promotion. According to NAGRAT's president, Angel Kabonu, the newly introduced Human Resource Management Information System acquired by the Public Services Commission has brought a lot of problems to teachers across the country. He outlined issues such as delay in receiving promotion letters, responsibility allowances, delay in promotion interviews and transfers as obstacles placed on the path of the Ghana Education Service. Mr. Kabanu is therefore calling on all teachers in schools that have already resumed to lay down their tools and stay out. Colleague Efwa Evans-Chinwe has been attending that press conference at which the strike was announced and joins us on the phone with more. Hello, Efwa.
Yeah, hi, Bernice.
So usually when these strikes are announced, there is an ultimatum given government. Did NAGRA do that this time?
No, Bernice, NAGRA did not give any ultimatum. Now, their action follows an earlier press conference held to put before the general public issues that are negatively affecting the Ghanaian teacher. They raised 7 issues, some of which are additional responsibility allowance, which they define as the additional responsibilities the teacher takes up besides their teaching duties. NAGRA says some teachers have suffered this problem for the past 3 years. Salary arrears, here they are blaming it on promotion issues and salary upgrade problems. Also, some teachers who have been promoted as far back as 3 years ago have not been given their promotion letters indicating the effective date of their promotion. They also say due to issues bedeviling promotion in the Ghana Education Service, teachers have stayed on their ranks for more than 5 to 6 years without being invited for promotion interviews, which as a result has created a huge backlog. So these are just a few of the 7 issues they raised at this press conference.
Thank you, Efwa Evans-Chinwe, my colleague. They're giving us some more details of NAGRA's decision to strike. Away from the education sector, the National Disaster Management Organization is demanding the release of excavators seized from illegal miners to enable it to reclaim devastated lands in the Ashanti region. NANMO says a number of people are dying as a result of falling into uncovered pits. Regional Coordinator Kwabena Insinchire says covering open pits will address the danger. Nanaya Ojima has the rest of the story.
Across areas with Galamsey activities in the Ashanti region, pits dug illegally were left uncovered when government banned Galamsey. It is only Amansia West district officials who are making efforts to cover them with local resources. A number of people have fallen into pits unknowingly and lost their lives. The interministerial task force established to fight the menace transport seized equipment to designated areas. Mr. Nsenche is requesting access is granted the NADMO for work to save life and property.
And it's very tempting when the pit is there, the people also, they themselves go back to mine in the same pit. Just last year at Bosomefremo district, a 12-year-old schoolboy was fall into one of the pits and died. So I would like to have some of the excavators, the seized one, so that we can use it in the various district assemblies, even in the Kumasi metropolis here, and then have them to distort some of our waters and drains, and so that we may also, as a regional NAGBO, we may also benefit from that Galamsey activities, and we may as well cover some of the Galamsey pits so that there will be more safety within the region.
Meanwhile, Mr. Ambrose Derry says the request will be thoroughly discussed. He says government is working towards ensuring the organization becomes more effective.
I've heard your complaints about the Galamsey pits. I will discuss with the interministerial committee, and I believe that we would see how we can allow you to use the equipment that caused the problem in the first place to solve the problem. You advise people not to stay in certain places. You advise people as far as the container is concerned, isn't it? And they refuse. And as a result, 4 people have died. Not so? I want to tell you this. Next time they refuse, let the police know. We shall arrest and take them away. We can't allow people to be arrested.
Nana Ojima reporting.
Now, South Africa has temporarily shut its High Commission building located within the Central Area District of Abuja in Nigeria due to protests against xenophobic attacks. A Nigerian group had planned to demonstrate at the South African High Commission to drive home their anger over xenophobic attacks in South Africa. It's not yet clear if the closure of the diplomatic building is due to the threat, but the compound has been under intense police protection. Ghana's mission in South Africa has confirmed that the attacks have not affected any Ghanaian yet. We are also learning that Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Ministry will be evacuating its citizens in South Africa following the attacks. Well, my colleague PSCN and Nana Safo is attending a press briefing organized by the South African High Commission here in Ghana. He joins us with more. Hello, Nana Safo. What has the South African Commission here in Ghana been saying about the xenophobic attacks? Hello, PSCN. Well, we seem to be having a challenge on the line there. Hello, Nanaya.
Hello, Bennett.
Right, great to have you here. Are you able to tell us what the South African High Commission here in Ghana has been saying about xenophobic attacks in South Africa?
Well, as I speak to you, media persons are still pouring in here at the South African High Commission to Ghana. The event has been delayed by a few minutes, we are told, and very soon the media engagements are set to begin.
Thank you very much, PSN and Safo. That will bring you the details once we are able to get what the South African High Commission is saying. But let's go to Nigeria now. Kayla Megwa joins us. She's with Channels TV in Abuja. Tell us exactly what the mood is in Abuja now. We understand the High Commission, South African High Commission there has had to close as a result of threats of xenophobic attacks or reprisals from the xenophobic attacks.
Hi, Bernice. We can confirm that this morning there was a protest at the South African High Commission office here in Nigeria from a group called the Concerned Nigerians. And they're asking Nigerians basically to not destroy South African businesses, but boycott them, asking Nigerian government to pull out of every single agreement that they have with South Africa. And, of course, they're asking for a closure of that particular High Commission. Now, that is as far as we can confirm. No South African authority came out of the High Commission to speak to the protesters, and we noticed that the place was empty. All right, so there's heavy presence of security, mostly the Nigerian police, in front of the South African High Commission, and the protesters made their demands, and no one came out to speak to them when they made those demands. So that is the situation at the South African High Commission here in Abuja, and that's where things are right now, Bernie.
All right, Kayla, so on social media we see a lot of videos coming up. Some have been said to be videos coming from different years and different scenarios. Are you able to confirm exactly what the attacks have been from Nigerians towards South African businesses?
Well, it started in Lagos, I think day before yesterday. Attacks at the ShopRite in Lekki and in Abuja, like I was telling you, your TV station yesterday night, there was no entrance. The protesters weren't able to gain entrance into the ShopRite at the Lubu axis of Abuja. So, you know, the police were able to contain that situation. The ShopRite there was not vandalized. The report that we have of vandalism of a ShopRite was in Lekki, and the Inspector General of Police yesterday released a statement stating that 125 people have been arrested following that attack, and 3 policemen were injured. Beg your pardon. 3 policemen were injured following that particular attack. So that is the situation. Today, there isn't any word on any South African businesses being vandalized in the nation's capital, nor were there any in the last few days. However, they're calling the protesters today at the High Commission are calling for a boycott of all things South African products and calling on the Nigerian government to step away from whatever agreements we had with South Africa at this particular point in time. We have heard that the South African High Commission in Nigeria has been shut down for a bit, but this is where the things are right now, trying to ensure that people are safe and that the situation is sorted out. Remember that this is an outrageous situation has affected Nigerians terribly. Between 2016 and 2019, over 120 Nigerians have been killed in South Africa. I think that's a figure that people have to keep remembering. So the outrage is legitimate. However, how that outrage is carried out is what's being addressed by the Nigerian government. You can, we are very upset, but do not take it out on South African businesses. And I said this yesterday as well. It's foolhardy, really, to attack South African businesses in Nigeria. Reason being that most of the products in ShopRite in Nigeria are delivered and sold by Nigerian businesses.
All right.
So an attack on that is also an attack on Nigerian businesses.
Sure, Kayla, are you able to...
Companies, hold on a second, Bernie. The same thing goes for businesses such as MTN. They are staffed by Nigerians. So the outrage is legitimate. However, it has to be channeled properly. That's the message. Yes.
And we understand that your government says it's willing to airlift Nigerians affected by the attacks in South Africa. Has that happened yet? Any group of Nigerians arrived?
Not yet. This statement was made yesterday night, and it's actually Air Peace. That's the name of the airline. Air Peace has agreed to airlift willing Nigerians. Okay, so it's not, oh, you have to come back home by force. No. Any Nigerian who feels stranded or your business has, gone down, been destroyed, or you just want to come back home, Air Peace has offered to fly those Nigerians from South Africa back to Nigeria for free. That hasn't been done yet, although that statement was released yesterday. But we'll be watching to see how that unfolds, and I'm sure it will happen in a few days' time, Bernie.
Thank you very much, Kayla Megwa, there with Channels Television, giving us an update on what is happening in Nigeria in response to xenophobic attacks on its citizens in South Africa. You're watching News Today. Still to come, the Office of the Administrator General, which is constitutionally mandated to facilitate the completion of handover notes for a smooth transition during change in government, has indicated that the office is building a data template which would in future ensure that state properties are properly accounted for. We've got details shortly. Thanks for staying here on Joy News Today. Now, the Office of the Administrator General, which is constitutionally mandated to facilitate the completion of handover notes for a smooth transition during change in governments, has indicated that the office is putting up a data template which would in future ensure that state properties are properly accounted for. In an interview with Joy News after an encounter with the representatives from 11 municipal and district assemblies across the newly created Bono East region, Administrator General David Yaro indicated the new system would help prevent theft by state officials, especially during transitions. Joy News' Anasabit has more in the following report.
In Ghana, anytime there is transition when outgoing governments are supposed to hand over to incoming governments, there's always been a problem. In some cases, especially in 2016, no single document was filed with the Office of the Administrator General, which is mandated constitutionally to ensure that is done. The office, which was faced with logistical constraints, including fewer staff, is currently building a data template across all regions, including the 6 newly created regions, to ensure that state properties are accounted for when there is change in government. Administrator General Mr. David Yaro disclosed this to Joy News during an encounter with representatives from the 11 municipal and district assemblies in the Bono East region.
This unit has been established, and one of the things that the unit should do is to take and keep an inventory of the assets and properties of government. And the idea is that we have to get, as I may call it, a register that contains all the properties and assets of government. Why that? So that when anytime we have a transition, as one change of government to the other, all that will happen is that the Administrator General will take these properties and hand them over to the incoming president and say, Mr. President, these records contain all the properties and assets of the country. Then also we ensure that when somebody is leaving, say, a bungalow after his tenure of office, whoever is coming should be able to meet all the things that were in that bungalow in good condition to take over.
He also indicated that the move is to ensure that state properties, including lands belonging to government, are properly documented to avoid encroachment of state lands.
We also to look at lands, government lands that are acquired by government, lands that have been given to government, and then other lands, because development hinges on land. So we want to avoid a situation where a region wants to do something, we say we have no land, or there is this land that was given to the region several years ago, and the fellow who gave is dead, and the new chief says, no, I'm taking back my land or something.
And that's a bit with that report. Let's take you now to the South Africa High Commission here in Ghana. The Commissioner is addressing the press on issues of xenophobia.
Remains committed to restore law and order and to ensure that those who are within our borders, whether they are South African citizens or foreigners alike, that they enjoy the protection of the state. Over the past few days, you would have received reports, or you would have seen reports alluding to the outbreak of violence. My government attributes this to simple criminality and people taking the law into their own hands. There are those who believe that because of the high level of unemployment and poverty, that the competition for scarce resources for both employment and maybe social services could be the root causes. But we unequivocally condemn such attacks, and once again wants to reiterate that the police have been deployed in force to make sure that the situation is normalized. My government in South Africa is part of the African continent. We are not an island somewhere. Our histories are linked. We are the same people. None of you would mistake me for a South African standing here saying nothing, because I'm an African. Nobody will mistake you for anything standing in the streets of South Africa, because you are an African. You belong there. The concept of an African being a foreigner on the African continent is itself a foreign concept. We are all one, and we realize this. Actually, we are acutely aware of the role that the continent played for the emancipation of our land against apartheid. We received immense support from the continent, from which we are eternally grateful. And we will do nothing to belittle such gallant efforts and brotherly sacrifices that the continent made. With regard to the flare of this violence, allow me first to put our economy into context. You will all be aware that South Africa is the most unequal society in the world, where we have in one country a developed one and a developing one. The infrastructure may be first world, but the patterns of ownership are different. If you look at the outflow of violence, it actually mirrors the distribution of resources in South Africa. You do not find this violence erupting on the affluent parts of the country, but where we are competing vigorously for scarce resources. Your professors, your doctors who are expatriates, most of them do not expect this, but those who come to compete for the lower or low-end paying jobs are actually the ones who are experiencing these challenges. The other issue which I want to put into context is when people are saying foreign shops were targeted. Let me put the economy of South Africa into context. Before 1994, the retail stores, your small shops and all that, were owned by South Africans. But whenever there was public disorder and looting, they went to those shops. They never said, these are South African shops, we're not going to tackle them. They tackled them. They looted them. And then after apartheid, what we did, that sector was opened. Our people had to compete with other traders from other parts of the world who had done this the longest. They've got more superior skills as far as that is concerned. And over time, the pattern of ownership of those small retail shops has changed, where you find that foreign nationals, because of their expertise, were able to saturate or maybe dominate them. So when violence flares up, in the township where they used to loot what used to be Mr. Madumani's shop, they arrive, it is now Mr. Kojo's shop, they don't care. They still loot it. They looted it even before 94. So it was not necessarily reflect the targeting of foreigners. Recently, when shops were burned, there was no choosing. There were ShopRite stores which were looted, PEP, and of course some other stores in a line will belong to different people. So there was no target. When they arrived, they say, oh, this is a South African shop. You will all agree the mob does not act like that. When they come, they say, we are causing mayhem, and they say, okay, this one we will not touch because it's South African. They never did that. So what I'm saying is that it was indiscriminate. Be that as it may, we continue to be the most multicultural country in Africa. And we will continue to promote that. There is not a single country, there's not a single country in Africa which does not have a sizable expatriate community in South Africa, simply because we are a welcoming people. That is why people will go there, find a living, and notwithstanding the fact that from time to time there will be foreigners who involve themselves in crime, South Africans also do crime. Crime does not have a nationality, the same as here. Crime does not have a nationality. And also, these foreign nationals who come into our country, we have benefited immensely from their expertise. They've contributed towards the growth of our economy, and we will continue to require skills like any other developing country. And we cannot close ourselves to the migration of labor, both skilled and unskilled labor, unfortunately. It is a human trait to want to go to a place where they think they will find a better life. So my saying is that we continue to be part of Africa. Even now, we are in the process of negotiating a visa waiver with the Ghanaian government. We hope that it will be concluded as soon as possible so that Ghanaians who want to travel to South Africa just get on the plane and go there. So contrary to claims that we are closing, we're not. We're actually opening up. And we will continue to do so. It will not be a once-off or something that is done immediately, but we will continue to do that. I would want to once again assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that my government is doing all it can to improve the manner in which we collect crime intelligence as well, so that we can proactively stop or be able to predict another spell and be able to make sure that other attacks are avoided in the future. With regard to recent reports, the High Commission is aware of reports that are making rounds with regard to what our government position or what this High Commission is saying. There are reports to the extent that we are saying African governments must create jobs in their own countries so as to make sure that their citizens do not go to South Africa. That is a misunderstanding of the statement of the High Commissioner. Most of the time when she engages with the media or with her visitors and all that, she talks about a need to create employment wherever we are. The High Commissioner was the Minister of Agriculture. She was a Minister of Women and people with disabilities and all that. And she sometimes, or most of the time, approached this thing looking at the most vulnerable in the community. So what she was talking about was like the policies that you have here, you're planting and rearing for food and jobs. What does that do? It creates jobs, and it creates jobs where in the rural area, and as such, it stops migration. We have some small industrial development policies, so she was attesting to that. Not that government should make jobs and so that their people should not go to South Africa. South Africa will continue to need skilled labor. We are part of the African community, so whatever migration patterns that we have here in the continent, we cannot be secluded as if we're an island somewhere. The other issue was the issue that we had, and unfortunately it was talking about that foreigners are selling fake goods and all that. You know, when you are in a country, foreigners are involved in the life of that country, whatever it will be. They will be priests, they will be teachers, they will be professors, and most of us have benefited largely from the Ghanaian professors and Nigerian professors and the like.
You had Tapilo Madumani, his Deputy High Commissioner for South Africa to Ghana. We'll bring you more on this. You're watching News Today. Coming up is Business Tuesday.